I've got one flame to burn, one race that I can say I ran.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 21047.com podcast. My name is Keith Cartwright. I am the host of this show, and I'm really glad to have you along listening in today, wherever it is that you are listening and whenever it is that you might be listening in. I'm just grateful to have you along listening in to this show today. This episode is sponsored by my dear friend Christy Allen. Christy is one of my longtime Patreon supporters. She's actually one of the very first that signed on with me way back when. And so she's at the core of about 19 people now who have joined this team of Patreon supporters. Patreon is a platform where you can support me financially. It allows me to spend more time on these podcasts and different initiatives through 21047.com. And really just to grow the reach of this message, to try to run to dark with this light that many of us have found in our running journeys and in the stories of some friends that we have met along the way. And so Christy's generosity gives me a lot more freedom to do some of the things that I really want to do. So thank you, Christy. And if you are interested in sponsoring one of these episodes or just backing me at some level, you can go to my website, 21047.com, TWOTIM 47.com. Just go to the homepage and scroll down to the bottom, and you'll find a link to Patreon where you can go and check that out. There's some different perks at different support levels that you can get in on, and I will happily partner with you on any of those that you so choose to go. And so thank you again, Christy. It's always good to be able to recognize you and certainly to see you. Going to be seeing Christy this weekend at Kiowa Island, going down there to run my 10th half marathon, going into double-digit territory. I may have to do a podcast next week just to reflect on that. The unlikelihood several years ago that I would ever sit and say I'm running my 10th half marathon is, well, it's just really beyond my comprehension right now. I think I'll need to sit down and think about that one before I talk much about it. So maybe a podcast episode next week. This episode, I am interviewing somebody who's been on here before, Tracey Outlaw, and talk about milestones. Tracey has run 4 marathons in 4 consecutive weekends. It's a long story, completely unpredictable. When I was sitting with him in New York City just about a month ago, I went up there to watch him run the full marathon up there as part of the New York City Marathon. And then he had at that time planned to drive back with me to Richmond, run the marathon there the next weekend. After running New York City, there was some doubt as to whether he would go through with that back-to-back full marathon. And well, from there, a far greater and bigger story developed. And so I'm just going to turn this over to my conversation with Tracey and get you right to this 4 marathons and 4 weekends story from my buddy Tracey Outlaw. I want to welcome Tracey Outlaw back to the 21047.com podcast. So welcome, Tracey.
Thank you. Good to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. So I got to tell you, when you and I had talked about this earlier this week and earlier in the day, my whole focus was we're going to spend this podcast talking about this incredible feat you just had of running 4 marathons over 4 consecutive weekends. And so that was going to be our big talking point. And I promise you we're still going to get into that because I have a lot of questions about that. But and it's a little bit ironic because the last time you and I talked, really most of our conversation was about your work with the USA Track and Field, and you'd been doing a lot of work covering their ultra runners. And so we spent a lot of time just talking about ultra runners and just some of the things and characteristics you had seen in them and some of your life out there covering it. And I made a lot of fun of you at that time that you were probably doing more covering running than you were actually doing running, which leads us to this incredible irony that we're going to talk about you running 4 marathons in 4 weekends. But shortly before I just called you, I saw a Facebook post that said that you are the USA Track and Field Contributor of the Year. which is an incredible honor when I looked at all the folks who have
Thank you.
received that. So congratulations, buddy, the USA Track and Field Contributor of the Year.
Thank you. Yeah, I was shocked yesterday morning. I got a message from Nancy Hobbs, who's the chairperson for the Mountain Ultra and Trail Council, which is a subdivision of the U.S. Track and Field. And she sent me a note and said that I had been selected as a contributor of the year. Annually, they announce their runners of the year, and then they name one contributor. And she said I was nominated and voted in on for the contributor of the year. And I thought it was a mistake originally, and I shot her a message back and said, I just want to be clear that you've got this right. And she came back and said that, I was. And to your point, a lot of it was around the US 24-hour page, something that Harvey Lewis, who you've had on the podcast before, encouraged me to take on that page. I'd done some work with him on his, his athlete page. So he encouraged me to take on the 24-hour page, and their head coach, Howard Nippert, was supportive. In 2015, I took that page over with about 700 followers, and I'm psyched that we're closing in on 7,000 about 2 years later. So it's been really rewarding. Did not see this coming. Like so many things, I think, parallels to a marathon, right? You just kind of get in and you just enjoy the process. And then to have this award, come as a result of it was really, really quite a surprise. So I was excited. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I was reading on there, on the page, on the article, and there's a whole paragraph on the work and your contributions, but I love it. It says here that Tracey is as dedicated to the promotion of the U.S. National 24-Hour Team and many, many other events and athletes in a volunteer capacity as any official member of any staff or event he covers. Because this is, you're not compensated for it. It's strictly from the heart and volunteering. And so I think it says a lot about you. And so good job, buddy. I got to thinking about that too, that, it's obviously your work life is a lot around marketing and promotion, but, I thought about the whole Flat Parker thing, and, there's just a lot of things in your life that sort of just keep building and pointing you towards certain roles. And, I think you've landed at a good place in this one, but I think there were some preparations along the way. I always, feel like God's just, if you step into these things, I've been talking about it an awful lot lately. If you just step in and step out and do things like you took on the Flat Parker deal, which turned into a much bigger deal. I think we talked about that last time than you ever imagined, really. And, and then on down the road, we don't see it, I don't think, a lot of times, but I sure believe God has this bigger picture. And then one day, here you are, the contributor of the year.
Yeah, I think I think there's definitely some lessons for me in that you focus less on, finishing the marathon, right? Or you just don't look at it in terms of what you're going to get out of it in a year or 2 years or, 6 months of training, but just as long as your intentions are in the right area and you've got purpose behind it. I think with the Flat Parker piece, with, my cousin's son who had leukemia, certainly the involvement with Megs Mile supporters group. I mean, that has been something that, just touches your heart. So as long as you have those things and, and you hold that true and close. And I find that's really what drives me is I have to have something that's deeply rooted in something that's personal for me. And then same thing with the 24-hour page is to be able to tell stories of these athletes that, are just doing some incredible feats and accomplishments, and being able to share their stories to motivate other people is the reward in itself. And then, it's just fun to see how God kind of works you, and works, with the path that you're on to touch even more people and to have it go in different ways that you never thought possible. So, Yeah, I definitely see some themes through some of those things that I've been active in that have touched me and allowed me to take on.
Well, let's shift gears a little bit. You gave me a nice transition there with the whole idea of you never dreamt it was possible because, like I said, the last time we were talking, and there was a lot of poking fun at, your lack of running or at least a big cutback. And we acknowledged your work schedule had been big. There had been a lot of stuff going on. So it was a lot of fun, but the truth was you hadn't been running nearly as much as you had. And so then we had this New York City Marathon on the horizon, and a lot of question, not maybe in your mind, but there was a lot of question in my mind and other minds. How well is he going to do? I mean, your mom really begged me to go to New York City with you just to look after your health. Yeah. So,
right.
So we did that. We went up and you ran the New York City Marathon. So let's just start there. What was that experience like? Because we really haven't talked much about that. And that's a huge, I don't want to jump all the way ahead. That's a huge race. From a spectator standpoint, it was just mind-blowing. But what was that race like?
Wasn't amazing? Yeah, the quick backstory to that too is, so I on a whim, entered the lottery, and it's a really difficult race to get in. I think the odds are like 1 in 8 or 1 in 10 of being selected, 100% lottery. And on a whim, I believe it was like 2015, I entered and was selected first time. Well, I didn't train well, like we've talked about. So I actually deferred in 2016. And you only get 1 year after that to defer, or you're just back into the lottery again. So really, as I came into 2017, my training's improved a little bit, but not much. But I really wanted to do the race. Didn't want to have to get back into the lottery again. So that was a little bit of the backstory and the trepidation, to your point, going into it. I think I'd done a long run of 10 miles about 3 weeks before the race, but I also set a goal too, right? I mean, normally when I'm racing, you'll have time goals, an A, B, and a C goal. And on this one, my first goal was just to have fun, and the second goal was to finish. So that was the mindset, at least going into it. It was a huge help, obviously, having you there for support as well. But it's an amazing race. It was about 54,000 people, 1.5 million spectators along the course. And it's definitely a bucket list race for anybody that hasn't done it. It was an amazing experience.
Yeah, I've never, and I've, not run nearly as many races as you and many people listening, but in all the races I've been to, the crowd, both the size of the crowd and the crowd support was just beyond belief. I mean, to go meet you near the beginning of the race, I think at mile 7, and just see these huge New York City streets lined with people, and then, fast forward 6-7 miles ahead and just another street corner lined with people. I mean, just everywhere you went.
8 or 9 deep.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I saw you a couple times too, wasn't it?
Right.
It was almost just a coincidence. There's so many people. I looked across. I think it was late in the race. Just sheer coincidence. I was able to find you. So.
Well, that or you had a good nose for the coffee nut M&amps. That could have been the
maybe
case
that's
too.
It. No, I was going to say that's really where the Cartwright training plan. We should probably talk a little bit about that, don't you think? Because this is really where the whole thing started. And those good friends of ours, a lot of the Meg Mile supporters, kind of know about this Cartwright training plan, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just been a running sort of joke, really, for years. That you said this year your training had kind of been lacking. Well, that's kind of been the story of my running life. Training has been active. It's been a little missing, and then suddenly I find myself lined up for these races. And, finish them. Now, again, going back to the goals, my goal has always been really just to finish. And I usually leave have fun out because that's usually not gonna happen, but finish. Then it became the running joke. It's like, you're getting ready to run this marathon on the Cartwright plan. What are you thinking? And then, factor in the nutrition of it all. I mean, I've never been known, there's the rumor out there that I stopped during the Richmond Marathon at Papa John's to have pizza, and that it's incredibly inaccurate, but the piece of it that is accurate is that, that's sort of my diet, it wouldn't be beyond me to do that. And so you kind of got touted as being on the Cartwright plan training for the New York City Marathon.
Yeah, so the training part and then the nutrition piece, right? You and I went into the M&M store on Times Square, which is literally the Disneyland of candy lovers or M&M lovers, right? 3 stories, incredible place.
Unbelievable.
And we were up there, I believe it's on the 3rd floor, and they have all these M&Ms you can mix, different colors and different varieties and flavors that they don't have in the broader market. And yeah, I remember I found the coffee nut M&Ms, and I'd never seen them before.
The young girl was sitting there. You could take samples, so you got a little sample. Then you said, "Here, you've got to try this." And then I did, and life has never been the same since.
No, it hasn't.
I mean, it really.
I think you and I both bought a small bag, which I think cost us both like $50, $60. I know Ian's college may be put off by postponed a year because of what we dropped in that M&M store.
Yeah.
But that was our fuel. So every stop, or at least 2 of the stops, I remember you, and I think it's on video, but that was my fuel. When I saw you the first time, you had the bag of coffee nut M&Ms. And so at New York City Marathon, that was my fuel. A few goos, but mostly peanut M&M or the coffee nut M&Ms.
Right. Now they're like, I get at least one Facebook post a day of somebody who's discovered these M&Ms on a shelf at a local store across the country. It's like there's a big game of hide and seek going on with coffee nut M&Ms. I've got 3 people I've committed to mailing them to who can't find them in their area. I just had a friend post on Facebook a little bit ago that she was suggesting maybe the Oreo cookie Thin Mint should replace the coffee nut M&Ms as fuel. I said, not now that I've just bought stock in the company. We're not going to have them replace as fuel. So, but that was part of the fun. It was a great fun trip. Now, after that marathon, let's be clear, right? I mean,
let me be very, very clear.
Here is the thing. So it's a lot of fun talking about the Cartwright plan. I watch all these people go out, and Julie Bravo's a great example. I just documented her first marathon on this podcast. We did a series of 4 podcasts, and in each one of them, Julie was out there just training, running further distances. She ran 3 20-mile runs as part of her training plan. So it's a lot of fun for me to say, well, yeah, you got that plan, but with the Cartwright plan, you don't have to do all that. You just go out and run. Now, the reality of that plan is, before anybody seriously wants me to draw it up and send it to them and patent it, the drawback to that plan is in the aftermath of your race.
Yeah.
If you survive, you feel like
painful.
It is. And so you came in after your race, because it's a long story. We got separated, and so you ended up walking back from the finish line.
Hours.
But you walked in the door, and, well, you looked like somebody had utilized the Cartwright plan. I mean, you looked awful. And I didn't say it. I didn't say it to you then. I didn't want to get anything stirred up. But I found like a sick sense of pleasure in that, and in that, you're one of those guys. I remember the first half marathon I ran, and you ran the full marathon, and you finished that thing, and you just looked like you'd rode a horse through the thing or something. You just jumped down, you just went on with life like nothing had ever happened, and nothing aggravated me more than I would go out and run and feel near death, and guys like you pump up like, you've been riding a bicycle, and what's next? So to see you come through the door, plop on the floor, and in your words, let me be clear, because at this time you had signed up to run the Richmond Marathon the following weekend. And in your words, laying on the floor somewhere between maybe the paramedics are going to need to be called and not, you said, let me be clear, I am not running the full marathon in Richmond next weekend.
Full, right. Right.
And then you did. So I'm curious what happened along the way.
Well, so I vividly remember that. I remember you actually wanted to do a podcast of me laying on the floor,
Yes.
interviewing me, which
Yes.
I refused. You did get one photo of me in a moment
Yes.
where it was, incredibly difficult. So obviously after the Richmond Marathon last year, I got caught up in all the excitement like we always do with the Megs Mile supporter group, and I'd signed up for the full marathon. So you asked me, so buddy, you're going to do the marathon this coming weekend? And I said, let me be clear, there's no way I'm doing the marathon. So fast forward, I'm at the expo on Friday night and run into another Megs Mile supporter, good friend of ours, Lachelle Head. And I tell Lachette I'm making my way over to downgrade to the half marathon. And so she, as only she can do, was like, no way, you got to do the full. You can totally do the full. You're amazing. You got this. You can do it. A couple other Meggers were there. The support was just unbelievable. So I walked out of the expo about 2 hours later with my full marathon bib in hand, ready to run the marathon the following day. That's basically how it went down. I was shaking my head going, what just happened? Because fully intending to trade down, and ended up, because of her enthusiasm, decided to take on the full.
And you actually ran that full with a friend of ours who was running his first marathon. So I think that worked out well.
It did. Yeah. We were back with, kind of in the back of the pack, and again, my goals are just have fun and finish. And Doug Bone from Oregon, and I kind of connected at the Marriott before the race and walked out together. And we ended up doing the whole thing together. He was amazing and really helped pull me through some of the later stages where it got difficult. You talked about Julie Bravo earlier. I will never forget about mile 23 as Doug and I are just grinding it out, and here she comes just flying by. So I guess a word of advice for anybody who's listening to this that is thinking about the Cartwright plan versus the actual legitimate training plan that you should probably do. Julie was smiling, good luck guys, I'll see you at the finish, and she just flew by. So that'll be another moment that I won't forget during that race.
Right, and I didn't run anything that day. I was at the finish line watching all these marathoners finish, and the number of smiles on marathon runners' faces that day was amazing to me. But it is folks that you and I have followed, the last 5-6 months in training, and these are people who really have trained hard. They have just been really dedicated to it. So I think there is a connection to abandoning the Cartwright plan and smiles, because like I said, the upside to the Cartwright plan is you don't train much. The bad side to it is you don't smile much either. And there were a lot of smiles that day. That's an interesting piece, because you talked about getting caught up in the emotion of the group, the enthusiasm of this group of runners, and in our case, it's the Megs Mile supporters. Because, trust me, in your face in New York City, I believed you. When you said, let me be clear, I trusted you. I believed. And so that support, is very, very telling. And then, we had, as part of our group, there were 17 runners who ran their first marathon this year, 17 of them. And I don't know how many there are now who were at that finish line and part of all that emotion of watching, again, all these smiles coming out, all the cheers. There's probably at least a dozen already who have committed. Next year is going to be my first marathon. I just, you're out there in it, you see this. I just wonder what you think is the power behind all of that. What is the real push in that enthusiasm that gets folks to make that commitment to do something pretty tough?
Yeah, you're right. It is definitely contagious, isn't it? And even in New York, just knowing that you were there and and Jorge, another friend of ours in the group, was there. It just makes such a big difference. And the support. I mean, the other thing that we do as a group is we always stay for the very last runner to finish the Richmond Marathon. And we're cheering just as loud for the last person that comes in, right around the 7.5 hour mark as we are for the people that are, doing the sub 4, the 3:30s. So yeah, it's a really unique group. And that's the other thing that's really helped me through these 4 marathons is in each one of them, I ran with the Megs Mile shirt or Megs Mile, Meg's bib on the back. And throughout the race, you just run with gratitude. You're part of something much bigger than myself, that you're grateful for being able to get out there, as painful as it is, that we can run. Because I always think of, the hundreds of thousands of people that would love to do what we do, would love to just go out and run. Whether it's, family friends that have got leukemia or cancer or just, any one of a number of things that don't allow them to do what we can do. So you combine those together, and really that's what kind of helps, propel me forward and meet people along the way and talk about Meg's story, to get through some of these races where maybe we haven't trained quite as properly as we should. And it makes it, that much more rewarding. So, when you can focus on other things other than yourself, I think that makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, and you actually contributed to it. I asked a question on Facebook this week because I've really just, I don't know, I've come to this point. I just really believe everybody should run a marathon. I think it would solve a lot of problems. And I know that's overly simplistic, but in my heart of hearts, there's a big part of me that actually believes that. But I ask it out to folks who've run marathons this week, and even folks who haven't. If somebody asks you why I should run a marathon, what would you tell them? And, very popular answer. You just said it just propels you forward. And, that certainly has been my experience with running in general, but specifically with after that first marathon. When you do that, it just opens some doors in your life, mainly because you don't stand in your own way anymore. There's a lot of things in this world we don't do, and we're the reason we don't do them. We're the door. We're the big roadblock.
Sure.
And we just, whether it's a lack of belief, a lack of confidence, whatever it is, but finishing that first marathon gave me the courage to do a lot of things, including this podcast right now. I mean, it just gave me the courage to step out and do something. So I love that whole propelling forward, because it's sort of opposite the symbol of struggling to that finish line and finishing. And in a lot of cases, it's really a grand beginning of something that you really didn't see coming.
Yeah, and I think you put yourself with other people too, right? And then they see some things in you that maybe you can't see. And even like a Lachelle going, dude, you can totally do this, and had I not done it, I wouldn't have been able to run that and experience that, with Doug as his first marathon. And that was a really great memories for both of us. And I would have missed that had I just followed what I was intending to do. So, there's something about that piece. And I would also say, just with running, as I commented on your post, and for those that haven't, I'm sure most people that follow the podcast are following your page on Facebook, but I thought that was an awesome question. And then the answers were really cool to go through and look at, why would you recommend, somebody run a marathon? And the answers that you saw were a lot of similarities, but it was interesting to look at the different viewpoints as well. But a big one for me is, you just run with a purpose, something bigger than yourself. And boy, you can default to that in the training and during the race. And it just makes, when you do finish, that much sweeter that you've done it with and for someone else. So I thought that was a really neat post you did, with that question.
The answers, like you said, the conversation around it was great. And what you really discover in a question like that with folks who have run marathons, they feel really good about that. They love being a part of that conversation. And I think that's part of how people get caught up in it. I think when you're around folks that have that sort of confidence or feel that sort of pride in what they did, it's one of those things like, I kind of want some of that. You know, how do I get some of what?
And you want to give it too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for people who have done like you've done a marathon, you're about to do another one. Look, hopefully we can talk about that in Houston. It's like, that would have never happened had you not taken on the first marathon and had you not had the encouragement to do so.
Right.
So once you've done it, you want to have other people experience that same joy. And like you said, it's a very fair statement that everybody should run a marathon.
Yeah.
Because of what they get out of it. So I love that.
Well, so here's the thing. We're going to move on a little bit because, so we joked, back up a little bit. We joked when we were talking on the last podcast about, we don't know if you'll survive New York City. You haven't been training and, but even then, I think the plan was that you would run back-to-back marathons. Now, that I thought that plan had been drastically redone after New York City, but you did it. You got the encouragement you needed, and so you pulled it together, and you did that back-to-back. Now, when we said our goodbyes that weekend after Richmond, there was no mention of a third marathon. I'm not sure anybody knew that the following weekend then would come number 3, and I don't even know where that ever came from. What on earth possessed you to do the third marathon that third weekend in a row?
I felt better than I deserved to feel coming out of Richmond. I felt pretty good. I recovered pretty well, and there were a few people. Michelle continued to email me about how I felt, and is there a marathon coming up this weekend? Kelly Schmidt, I think, sent me a couple just friendly reminders about any races near you. Nicole Williams, who's going to be joining us down in Houston, also sent a few messages. And so I happened to be in Arkansas for work in Bentonville, Arkansas, and I think it was Wednesday or it was Thursday night, I think, after work. I decided to stay over the weekend to see my folks the following weekend, which was Thanksgiving. So it was a short following week. So I was in Arkansas, and I literally just Googled marathons near me. And there happened to be one the day after on Saturday morning in Cotter, Arkansas, along the White River. Beautiful little marathon. Unlike New York City, there were 190 people in the marathon versus 55,000. So, huge contrast. But yeah, so I went over the night before, stayed in a small hotel, and got up in the morning and took on the third marathon with the same 2 goals, and fueled by the coffee nut M&amps, which I still had, obviously, from our travels in New York to Richmond and now back to Arkansas. So it just kind of happened. It literally wasn't planned until that Thursday with a couple emails or messages from friends, and then the fact I felt good. And it's like, maybe we'll keep this streak going and see if there's one near me. Had there not been one, obviously I wouldn't have run it, but it just coincidentally happened to be one on Saturday morning.
See, I don't know if I'm a good friend or a bad friend, because I'm sitting here thinking I had no idea all these, and those are all wonderful people. They're dear friends of mine that you say were emailing you. I'm like, well, what's wrong with me? Because nowhere did it cross my mind to email Outlaw and say, I think you ought to run a marathon this weekend. I mean, that never crossed my mind. No. And yet you had all these voices in the background saying, Google marathon near me. And then, and then there you are. So 190 people. Yeah, that was a little bit smaller.
Yeah, it was a beautiful race. It was a great day. And I recovered pretty well from that. So,
now, at any point, so I mean, the end of the story is you ended up then the following weekend running your 4th. Yeah. So during that third marathon, I mean, did it cross your mind at that point, this streak might keep going? No, that was it. It was just the third one, because I hadn't looked at the weekend before. I didn't. I mean, the following week I was going to be in St. Louis with my family for Thanksgiving, and then I'd fly back on Saturday to Seattle. So no, when I ran that one, that was it. And then I worked on Monday and Tuesday the following week, and then
Wednesday took off to see my parents in southern Missouri. And I think it was Wednesday before Thanksgiving, again, on a whim, I said, I wonder if there's another marathon in St. Louis or Seattle. And coincidentally, the Seattle Marathon was on Sunday morning. And I was flying back out of St. Louis late Saturday afternoon. And so I was able to sign up, I think the day before Thanksgiving, signed up for that race because I felt good. Now, if I would have felt awful, then I probably wouldn't have done it, but I still felt good. So, yeah, these things, that's just how it happened. Definitely wasn't something planned. And I didn't even think about the Seattle Marathon being on the Sunday I get back from this 4-week trip. So that's how that happened.
And so here you are, and we had talked coming back from New York City. We drove together from New York City back to Richmond, and I had given you a lot of grief up to and even after, that you might not feel so good because it's been 3 years since you've even run a marathon. Now, you went to great lengths to make sure I knew that it was a little less than 3 years. It was like 2 years and 11 months. But it had been almost 3 years since you'd run a marathon, and now you've run 4 in 4 weekends.
Well, let me share this too, though. To your point. Now, this is part of why, I went through a couple of years, literally, when I moved out here, new job, new city, in Seattle, and had kind of gotten away from running, to be clear, with other priorities. But I truly missed it. And prior to that, I'd run a lot. But New York City really has been and was kind of the turning point for me for a couple of reasons. One, I distinctly remember the moment when you asked me, so buddy, you're about to take on this New York City Marathon. When was the last time you've done a marathon? You remember that?
Yes. Because I was really serious. I couldn't remember it. And
I couldn't remember. So that kind of hit me. That was a gut punch, right? I couldn't remember. I literally had to go on Athlinks, a site that kind of tracks, your races. And it was in January of 2015 in New Orleans was the last time I'd run one. So that hit me. And then the other thing that has stuck with me, can I share this?
Oh,
the
please.
Story about the 3 people in New York City.
Oh, yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
So in New York City, we meet from whether it's a concierge at the hotel or restaurants, different places that you and I were out, traveling around the city the day before the race. We met 3 different people. I'll distinctly remember them. And each of them would say, so are you in town for the marathon? And I would say, yeah, we are. One of us is running and the other's, crewing, right?
Yes.
Each of the I can't make this up. Each of the 3 people then, as I said that, they looked over to you and they said, well, good luck with your race.
Yes.
And I'm like, no. I'm the one running. He's crewing. But 3 different people said that to me. So you combine the fact I couldn't remember last marathon. You are the marathoner between the 2 of us, obviously. That kind of hit home a little bit. So I think that's part of what's fueling this recommitment. It's just the pendulum may swing. It is swinging pretty far the other way, but it's this commitment to at least build a base and get back into something that I love and have missed. So I have you to thank for both of those.
Well, and I will add to that. Being the
marathon guy.
Yeah, well, I will add to that. I didn't run in New York City, but those 3 occasions may be the highlights of my running career. All 3 of those folks calling me the runner. It beats any medal I've ever got. So,
yeah, we will forever have fun with that one. But no, there's a good reminders, right? To be like, oh, I miss this, and let's get back into it. So that's the other thing that, I'll Google these races or see if there's anything out there. It's what behind I do want to, build a base safely, right, and not hurt myself. And it's again, very slow to get through them, but. Build a decent base. So it just worked out perfect. I think I arrived on Saturday night about 8:30 into Seattle, pouring rain. Got up the next morning, Sunday morning at 5:30, and got down to the start with my coffee Nut M&amp fuel and finished the Seattle Marathon. This past Sunday. So 4 in 21 days, I guess.
I don't know. It was something 4 weekends. I lost, like I said, I was losing track of it. And in all seriousness, that to me is an incredible feat if you've been training all year. The fact that you haven't been, and I always joke about fresh legs, but fresh legs, I think that carries you through one race. But 4 weekends in a row, that, I don't know, that speaks pretty highly to some good genes you have, some good ability to carry that training from 2 years ago forward. I don't know what it speaks to, but I don't think everybody can go out and run a marathon 4 weekends in a row on limited training. I mean, even the Cartwright plan can only go so far.
Well, the Cartwright plan, I think I've definitely lived it. I think it was 10 miles of training runs. And anybody that's listening to this blog, like literally, like poor Harvey Lewis, who you've interviewed, he's an ultra runner. Yeah. He and Julie Bravo are cringing right now. But right. I think that the training was 10 miles and the actual racing was like 104.8, right? 26.2 times 4. So that's been my month, but I have called my parents and thanked them for good genes. You and I joked about, well, it's muscle memory, right? I've done marathons before, so this is just muscle memory. I think that probably translates a little better in golf than it does running.
Right.
But I don't know, just the mindset and I've met some amazing people in each one of the races too. So I think that, that just helped fuel me to continue through it. And yeah, I'm fortunate that I've recovered and I feel good. I will tell you that with each one of them, I have set a little goal that you just wanted to be faster than the one previous. So I've been able to do that as well. Again, starting, at a good solid pace in New York City, but I've been able to improve each of the 4 as well, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think I saw the one Sunday was 440 something, 445. I just shook my head. It's like, this is unbelievable. So you will confirm that there won't be a 5th?
Yes, to be clear. No, it's funny because another mutual friend, Leah Davidson, had actually shot me a note, I don't know, last week or something, and said coincidentally there happens to be a race on December 2nd in Washington. It's just north of Seattle. But no, I think I can confirm on this podcast that we'll leave it at 4. I've got a few other things with the house and work and some other stuff that will take precedent this weekend. So we'll leave it at 4. And I've got a good base, and now I just need to continue the training part of it and get ready for Houston.
Yeah, no, and I'm really, really excited that you're going to be joining me for my 2nd marathon, but again, it's much more than just the marathon. I wouldn't be going to Houston if it wasn't for the hurricane efforts down there, and again, just God leading this path in a certain direction that has connected me with some good folks down there, and then connected me with them at a time of the year when they had got a big race down there, and several good friends. How many
friends are going down now? I'm going to join you. Obviously, are there 8 or 10?
Yeah. I mean, there are several of them. Lachelle and Dee and Nicole and her family. My whole family's going. Robin's coming from the Cayman. My dear friend who started this whole thing. I mean, this all started because I went out on a training run. Ironically, I went out on a training run. I don't know what I was.
How all these things start, isn't it?
Training for, but I just was out, and the Hokie Half Marathon had been on my mind, which was coming up. That was way back in September, and I said, I think I want to go run that race. I'd been wanting to run a race, and then at the same time, I just started having all these images of the Hurricane Harvey had just hit down there in Texas, and there were all these images of devastation. And kind of like you, I just do better with running if I'm doing it for something, if I have some purpose in mind bigger than me. And so I threw something out there on Facebook. I just love Facebook. Does anybody know anybody in Houston? Is there any stories in Houston? I want to do something to help, but I just don't want to just raise money and just hand it over. I'd like to know a bit of the story. And
connect.
So a friend who I worked with years ago in North Carolina, we were friends on Facebook, but we certainly haven't touched base much in the last 10 years, reached out and said, I know a minister of fun at a church down there. And I thought she was joking, but the guy's title really is Minister of Fun. And he put me in touch with Father Jim down there, and so we had conversations. His church is doing incredible things in the community down there, and they have for years. And so they were just really, God had been preparing them to be in the midst of this hurricane relief. And so we got connected. I said, hey, everybody, I want to raise some money for this church. And in my mind, and I told Father Jim, maybe a few $100s, so don't think you're going to, do a lot, but we're going to pour our heart into it. Well, it ended up being a couple of $1,000s, which just blew my mind off, just the generosity of everybody. And so then one thing led to another, and I'm going down to Houston. I wore this bib on my back is what it was, and I had everybody's name on it who contributed, and I was going to mail this down there to the church and say, hey, I just want you to have the names of all the people who poured their hearts into it. And so then the minister of fun reached out and said, you ought to come down here sometime, and maybe you run a race while you're down here. And turns out my friend Robin was supposed to run the Houston Marathon last year. She deferred to this year before any of this.
Yeah.
And she reached out at almost the exact same time Tom, the minister of fun, did. And kind of like you, we've got these friends who poke us. She said, this story can't end yet. You've got one more thing you need to do. And I was reading a book today that, it's like, I'm reading this book called Whisper, and it's talking about how you can tell that God's talking to you. And goosebumps is one of those things when you just hear something and you get goosebumps. Well, when she sent me that message at the exact same time almost as Tom sent it. So I looked at and originally I looked up the Houston half marathon, and it was sold out. So I really just said, I can't do this one because my distance is sold out. And then something came over me that said, these folks are fighting through what they're fighting through, and you can't run a marathon. And next thing I know, I'm signed up for it. And then all these friends are joining in.
And you thought it would be you, and you probably thought it'd be you and Robin and
that was it.
Maybe what?
Me and Robin and a couple of people from the church, and now it's my friend that I originally who started this whole ball rolling. She's coming from Colorado now to run the 5K. She just posted today on Facebook that she just ran 26 miles for the month, which was far more than she had ever run, or at least in a very long time. She said that she ran, I don't know what she said, she ran quite a long time today without stopping, and then the first time she did it, it was just a few seconds. And you could just hear the pride in her, but again, here she's coming now to Houston. The minister of fun down there, he's running at the 5K. It's going to be his first race in 30 years, I think he said. So it is just amazing what I go back to. Running that marathon for me. I had this conversation with somebody the other day. I think you and I, we've had different roles in the business world, and in the business world, you hear a lot about outcomes. You just gotta be pointing towards these outcomes, and you got to be able to measure these outcomes, and we get all caught up in outcomes. And I don't know, I've been thinking about it a lot lately. I think outcomes trips us up in this life business because too many times, we think of running a marathon and we think of what we want the outcome to be, whether we want it to be a time or this certain feeling. And I don't know, God has just seemed to have much bigger plans for the outcome. I mean, for me, finishing my first marathon was the smallest piece of what has transpired since finishing it.
But don't you also think you've got to be aware too, right, of all the other little things that come along and then act on it, right? Because you just mentioned 3 or 4 things that kind of all happened that in themselves you could have discarded. right?
Yes.
But because you're open to it, you're aware, your heart's in the right place, your intentions are in the right place, that it just all, it fits together. And the other thing I think that's really interesting with that weekend, and why it's also so special, is it's the same weekend as Meg's Memorial Run.
Yes,
right?
and the
So
fourth anniversary of Meg's death.
Yeah, and so there's a big virtual run all over the country. They're going to do a 5K in Richmond for the first time to honor Meg and support the new LLC, charity. And so for that to be the same weekend that we're going to go and pour our hearts out to folks that need it in Houston, there'll be people running, all over the country for Meg or for people that are, close to them in their lives at the same time. So it's just going to be a really amazing weekend. And I think it's God at work. There's just no other way to say it, So yeah. I'm really excited about it.
Nah, well, you have, you were the icing on the cake, buddy, to open the pizza box and see the announcement that you would be joining us down there. It's just, it's turned into something. Like I said, I just keep saying, you take the step. Don't worry about what it's going to turn into, because the reality is you can't dream enough to predict what it's going to turn into. So we're going to have a lot of fun down there. My wife and both of the boys are going with us, so it's going to be a great experience for them to kind of engage in that community down there and see firsthand. I'm sure there's still a lot of destruction down there, and it'll be good. I look forward to it.
Yeah, so through your page and through the Megs Mile supporter page, if people haven't followed that yet, I think, we'll share a lot of those photos from the experiences in Houston, and there'll be obviously opportunities for other people that want to join running virtually, for Meg.
Yep.
All over the country will be able to, have access to that as well. So it's the Megs Mile supporter page on Facebook. And yeah, like you said, it's going to be an amazing weekend about a month from now.
Yeah. No, God, don't say it. That makes it sound so quick.
We got 6 weeks, I guess, still to train, don't we?
Yes. Trust me. We need every day of that. Although I'm running a half marathon next weekend, so that'll be good. That'll be good prep.
Yeah, no, you're doing great.
Well, buddy, it's past my bedtime. You're out there on the Seattle time, but I am. Again, I think it was we decided to do this today, and literally 2 minutes before I called you, I found out about this award, Contributor of the Year, and it's a great honor for you. I mean, and well deserved. I've watched you pour your heart into that page and watched it grow. Watch the numbers tick up every week, every race, every runner you covered. So they're lucky to have you, and it's not surprising. You take things like that on, and you don't hold back your heart, that's for sure. So congratulations on that again, the USA Track and Field Contributor of the Year.
Thank you very much, Keith. I appreciate it.
Well, buddy, I was.
You need to get to bed.
I do need to get to bed, but I feel like I should be telling you, because you're let me be clears don't hold much weight. So something tells me I should be wishing you luck on number 5 this weekend. But if not, you have a good weekend.
All right, buddy. I appreciate it. And if something were to happen, you'll be the first to know. How's that?
Yeah, please send me the bulletin, the update. So, and I know what it'll happen. All it's going to take clearly is for Lachelle to give you a call or an email, and you'll be at the starting line.
If you could share this podcast sometime, like maybe Monday of next week, I'd appreciate it.
I'll work on that. Hey, buddy.
There you go.
Thank you. Man. I appreciate it.
Night.
Yeah, have a good night. Thanks again.
All right. Well, where is the beeping noise for breaking news? Breaking news. We interrupt this program to bring you breaking news. I need the beeping sound because I am going to interrupt this podcast to bring you an update to this Tracey Outlaw 4 marathons and 4 weekends story. I was laying in bed last Friday night, about 11 o'clock at night, which is well beyond my bedtime. And Tracey knows that. And so I'm laying there and I get this text message that says, when you get this, I'll be running #high five. I knew right then and there this crazy man had found himself a 5th marathon to get out there and tackle. And sure enough, Saturday morning, somewhere north of Seattle, Tracey went up and conquered marathon number 5 and 5 consecutive weekends. And so I don't know where this story ends. He made it clear in the podcast. You heard him. He made it clear that number 4 was it. But now we're to number 5, and I make no predictions about what we might find out this weekend. It is Tuesday, so that gives him plenty of time to Google marathons near me to come up with number 6. And I assure you, there are friends out there, the same friends that had prompted him before. They are out there poking him today, trying to get him number 6. So we'll see where it goes. Tracey, what a great story, though, going through that. It's always a lot of fun talking with Tracey, but what an incredible journey to be up there in New York City with him and to somehow sit and think that he and I would be talking a month later, talking about 4 marathons, 4 consecutive weekends. I don't think any of us would have put money down that was going to be a good bet, that was a likely scenario. So it was fun talking about. It is amazing how, runners, you get into this groove and you run a race and you immediately start thinking, at least I do, about that next challenge, whether it's another race, whether it's running that distance a little bit faster. It's usually when you talk to runners, they're always thinking about pushing themselves beyond something that they've already accomplished. And I think that's the beauty of it. And I think as you do that and realize that we can reach new levels, that's really what this podcast is about. That carries over into other areas of our life, whether it's school, whether it's relationships, whether it's projects like this that I'm taking on. When you get out there and run and you dream of something bigger and then you accomplish it, well, you're free to dream in other areas of your life and dream bigger probably than you did before. It's easier to dream bigger when you've seen 1 or 2 of them come true. So I completely get where Tracey is coming from on this journey. I completely get it when people respond to him on social media. I saw one of them I liked the other day, Mayor of Crazy Town, because, that shoe seems to fit a little bit there, Cinderella. But I think Tracey is just the guy to kind of run with this journey, have a lot of fun with it. I loved it. He said his goals were just to finish and have fun. And I think he's done a lot of that. And he's always good at bringing us along with him on the ride and sharing in the fun. So I really appreciate that about him. So stay tuned. Who knows if we're going to be talking about number 6 next weekend, but it's been a fun ride either way. So thanks for joining in today. Maybe you're out there taking on your own running streak of some sort, have your own challenge out in front of you. I wish you luck with that, whatever it is that you're tackling. Like I said, I'll be tackling Kiowa Island this weekend, the half marathon down there. New state, never ran in South Carolina, so I'll check that off. Number 10, check that off this weekend. So lots of milestones and a journey that really I never saw coming. So I look forward to my own race this weekend. Wish you luck in yours. If you don't have races and you're just out there running, run hard. We're all behind you. If you don't run, get out there and cheer somebody on. And this whole running thing is just way beyond you. If you don't get the idea of going out there and running 100 yards, let alone 4 marathons, 4 weekends, trust me, I know where you're coming from. And I'm just really grateful that you found some reason to listen in here today. And I hope that you'll come back. Again, if you want to keep up with what's going on with this podcast, if you want to listen to previous podcasts, read different articles that I've wrote, catch up on, got a big initiative going, a bunch of us going down to run for Houston, and I'll do a separate podcast on that in the near future. But if you want to catch up on any of that, just go to 2tim47.com, TWOTIM47.com. Until next time, thank you again for being part of this journey, and we will see you soon.